Thank you. It's nice to be here today.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Francesca Manfredi, Head of Sustainable Innovation at Kering. Good morning.
Jason McIntosh. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Tracr. We're a blockchain-based traceability platform for the diamond industry. Yeah, also very happy to be here. Thank you.
Andrew Rimmer. I'm the CEO of Opsydia. We're a UK-based sort of company. We make laser inscription machines for inscribing inside the diamonds or gemstones.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tai Wong, Director of Global Innovation and Product Development for Platinum Guild International. Platinum Guild International is involved with the platinum usage of jewelry, so that's what we're promoting, educating since 1975. So, yeah.
Thank you, everybody. So on that note, I'm going to actually start off with my first question with Tai. This session was initiated by PGI and its affiliation with CIBJO. Can you talk to me briefly about how this came about and what the thought process was?
Yes, Josh. You know, for the last year, we've actually seen a lot more platinum inquiries into the market. A lot more platinum chains, rings, and also brands that traditionally doesn't really work in platinum started launching platinum collection. And I think part of that reason is because where the platinum metal price is sitting relative to the gold price right now. And it's creating a very good opportunity, business opportunity for a lot of different brands and also for the trade. And as there are more platinum actually being used in the setting of stones, precious stones, and diamonds, we at PGI are working on the technological front to address many of the production issues. But at the same time, we're also working with the trade to look into the expanding of responsible sourcing from the stone also to the metal. Because the consumers are not just buying loose stones, they're buying a complete finished jewelry. So the platinum, the metal, is as important as a key ingredient in what they're purchasing. So platinum, really we're in the beginning of this journey in establishing, and we just launched responsible sourced platinum and responsibly mined platinum in 2023. And what we found extremely helpful is that through many conferences and events, we're sitting together with leaders of the trade to address many of the directions, such as responsibility or traceability within the supply chain. The CIBJO conferences today and tomorrow, I think there is a lot of sessions that will also be addressing the topics such as sustainability and responsibility. So I'm just extremely honored to be here with this group of amazing panelists and experts to sort of kick off the first seminar. And focus a little bit more, I think today our topic is on technology and innovation, on how that's enabling organization to establish better practice in responsible sourcing.
Thank you, Tai. I want to jump over to Jason real quick and just ask him, how did De Beers recognize the growing demand for provenance amongst consumers leading to their investment in the Tracr platform back in 2017?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. Look, I think De Beers conducts research all the time on the industry, and we're always pretty aware of what's happening. And I think that growing wish to have provenance was there for a long time. The question was what to do about it, and obviously you had paper-based solutions. Really why they then chose to invest at that point was they did a kind of innovation program with an external partner looking at everything in the industry, what they could do around innovation. And I think it came up with around 3 key proposals. And at that time, blockchain was just maturing to an extent where you could actually do something with it. And obviously Internet of Things and AI and these capabilities were starting to make it possible. And so I think the good thing was they had the bravery then to make this step and say, okay, we think this is the future. We're going in the digital direction. We're going to put a lot of money and time behind it and really commit. So I think the data was there and public, but the real thing was actually deciding to do something with it.
Definitely. Thank you very much. I have a question for Francesca. Can you talk to me a little bit about who is Kering and what is the Jewelry Innovation Lab and how that actually came to be?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the question. Probably you have heard about Kering. Kering is one of the most important luxury group in the world. It's a French corporate and owning the best brands in the world, like Gucci, Bottega Veneta, and many others, but also jewelry brands like Pomellato, Boucheron, and many others. And Kering has this division called Jewelry Innovation Lab, which is in charge of developing innovations in terms of materials and processes for our brands in order to reduce as much as we can the impact on the supply chain.
Thank you. Hopping a little bit back into the tech end, Andrew, can you talk to me a little bit about Opsydia and what it does?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, as I said, we manufacture laser inscription systems. The thing that's unique about our technology is the inscription is inside the stone. And it's at a sort of nano level, so it doesn't affect the clarity, even the flawless sort of diamond. And that can be applied to both diamonds and coloured gemstones as well. So what it means is that we've got a solution to provide a secure identity for the stone to link then in with traceability programs.
Very exciting. Speaking on the colored gemstones, turning over to you, Ed, can you talk to me a little bit about what Gemfields has done to meet the consumer expectations on gemstone sourcing?
Yeah, thank you. I think those of us that have been around the industry for some time have seen this change and the increasing consumer need to understand where their material comes from and, of course, how it is presented to them in the final offering in the retail counter. And diamond industry has done a lot of work. I think we're all familiar with the Kimberley process. But when the consumer looked at colored stones, and I'm looking back 20 years now, there was a lot of confusion about where colored stones came from. It's a much more fragmented, it's a much more unorganized supply chain, and Gemfields brought a restructuring, or attempted and still continues to try to bring a restructuring to that, to meet the consumer demand for more responsibly sourced materials. And principally they've done that by bringing the ability to invest and bring large-scale mining to gemstone deposits, significant world-class gemstone deposits around the world. And the first of those was a mine in Zambia, Kagem Emerald Mine, which was, at the time, Zambia was probably the third largest emerald producer in the world, behind Colombia and Brazil. Zambia is now the largest producer of emeralds in the world, and principally that's because Gemfields has increased production 4 times at that mine using those techniques, and interesting also, increased revenue by 15 times. Why is that important, and why does that meet consumer expectations? Firstly, there's more supply of a beautiful material that brands such as Kering can use, giving more flexibility and more options to the manufacturers, which offers more enticement to the consumers to purchase. And secondly, because we've increased the revenue so much, that's much more tax bring back to the government of Zambia. So with a full transparent system where the maximum value of the material is brought into the market, that means 100% of the revenue tax is paid on that to the government of Zambia. And in our case, we're a 25%, 75% partner with the Zambian government. So it's increased the ability for the government to impact economic development within the country, which is part of where we stand. And I think that is what the consumer wants to see. They want to see more product available, but they want to see it responsibly sourced in a way that supports economic development of the countries where the material comes from.
Thank you very much. I wanted to turn back to Jason and ask him to elaborate a little bit on how Tracr evolved over time from a conceptual idea to now becoming an open platform within the wider diamond industry.
Yeah, a very good question, Josh. I mean, it's hard. It's harder than you think. So, you know, Tracr was set up with this grand vision to trace everything all the way from mine to finger. What we quickly realized, and I kind of joined about a year into the journey of Tracr, was that after initial POC, it's hard because it's a very complex supply chain, and it's actually quite hard to monitor individual goods when they're so small and there are so many of them. So what we did was we did initial POC, proved that the tech could work. And then there was a long pilot period where we said, okay, we're going to work with De Beers Goods, where we have control of the technology. We can We can test everything at scale, and we work with site holders. And we did around 1 million diamonds through this pilot period. And then once when we had a full confidence, we went into production, which was, I think, 22. And then again, we stuck with the site holders just to kind of make sure everything was working really well for another year. And then finally this year, we were kind of, okay, we're really confident. We can start now integrating other partners, and we can start talking about the original vision of bringing other producers on. But yeah, I want to just reiterate, it's a complex and long task. So, you know, it's not just Web3, you switch an app on, but it's like you've got to connect a lot of different people.
Oh, that's exciting. I know the industry is very excited to be able, for you guys to be able to bring the other minds on board eventually. Andrew, can you talk to me a little bit about where you think the industry is in terms of hardware and what it can offer for greater transparency and traceability within luxury goods?
No, fair comment, Josh. I mean, essentially what we've got to recognise is I think a lot of the developments have been around sort of driven by the need for traceability sort of information. We've got to recognise in the industry, I mean, look, for many years, the identity of a stone when it gets nearer to the consumer is the girdle inscription and the inscription and the sort of certification report. And so, you know, I think what we're sort of really seeing is that from the girdle inscription point of view, it does have its limitations. In some jewellery settings, you're not able to read it. There's mainly just certified goods, are the only ones which have the girdle inscriptions. And of course, it does have its limitations in that it can be removed. So at that point, suddenly you've lost that link to any traceability information that was with that stone. And of course, unfortunately, we do see too many instances where counterfeits are appearing on the market as well. So the new developments coming onto the market, I've talked about our internal inscription. There's also spectroscopic sort of analysis of stones. There's nanoparticles can be applied to stones. There's more advanced sort of proportion matching and that sort of thing. And I think that whole new generation of technologies, what they are offering is now a secure identity for that stone. And that's the big sort of change now. So that the aim of those solutions really is to provide something that can't be counterfeited, that really you can provide that trust for the consumer. And of course, if you look at the platforms, you know, like Tracr, for instance, you know, there we've got all of that information being gathered about the origin and the traceability of the stone. But that's the information. You've got to link to the physical stone that's in front of you because that's what the consumer's buying. So I think that's where these new solutions are really coming into play.
I'll follow up on that, Andrew. How do you ensure that all types of gemstones, not just diamonds, can demonstrate traceability and move at the same pace, you know, tying back to Gemfields?
No, fair comment. I mean, listen, out of some of those solutions, you know, some can be used just for diamonds, some just for coloured gemstones. I mean, our inscriptions can be applied to both. So certainly, yes, there are some solutions which do go across the different ones. I mean, when you come to the platform, it might be, you know, you've got to have feeds from different solutions depending on whether it's diamonds or whether it's coloured gemstones, and that's fine, as long as you sort of pull that together.
I think that's great news for the industry moving forward. Moving over to the metal side of things, question for Tai. Can you talk to me a little bit about how technology is being used in platinum to address the greener energy and better manufacturing practices globally?
Sure, Josh. That's a very interesting question, and a little bit different when we consider the development of platinum group metal and how it's applied to wider industry outside of jewelry. Because currently platinum is widely used in many different sectors, including waste and pollution control, in energy and storage, into electric vehicles and hydrogen fuels, cancer treatment, food technology, et cetera, et cetera. And what we've been trying to do in the past years is bring some of that research and development from other industries back into the application of jewelry, because there's just a lot of things that's being done on that front. And some of the stuff that we started to achieve is to work with industrial producers to create semi-finished products on the upstream. So tubes, sheets, wires, casting grains, and producing those not in workshops, but in large research facilities that's also catering to the aerospace or the high-tech sector. So not only are we able to improve on the quality of the platinum that's being provided into the trade, but also on the way it's sourced, on the way that it's worked, and on the way that it's refined. But more specific to today's topic, I think that this is one of the exciting part where we're also speaking with Tracr, with Opsydia, to figure out and to find out the technology that it's being implemented on diamonds and colored gems. Can that also be applied on the metal front to apply that traceability to the origin of the metal?
Well, tying back to a question for Jason, how does Tracr function as a provenance platform for the industry, and what is the main difference it's making for customers?
Yeah, you always give me the easy ones. So you know, we are ultimately we're a data platform. So we're trying to bring transparency and more options around data, but in a rich and engaging way, so people can tell stories around diamonds. So if you think of what we do, we start by taking a scan up a producer, which gives you the confidence that the stone, you're tracking it from source. And then we're tracing the diamond all the way through and adding data as we go through. So essentially, we're building up a story of the diamond all the way through the supply chain. And then, when you get to the end of it, really what we want to do is enable retailers to use that information however they want. And that's going to vary by retailer. So some of them will want it as part of their audit process. They just want a whole stream of paperwork recorded securely. Others will want to tell rich and interesting stories, so they'll want like images of the mines and ESG data. Some of them will want to just embed it in their brand somewhere without even using our name. So we're trying to facilitate all that. And then, of course, tying back to these guys, as new technologies and new means of verification come online, so people like Opsydia introduce new technologies, we can attach these new verifications to the diamonds and kind of increasingly raise the bar on the data that's available. And then finally, obviously, ultimate aim is to connect our traceability information into jewellery, and obviously this is where we're excited to work with people like PGI, because there are emerging digital solutions out there that can either be based on Tracr or incorporate our data to bring a story around a piece of jewellery. So that's the end goal.
Great things coming. Andrew, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in traceability and hardware, and where do you see it evolving?
Well, as Jason's just sort of mentioned, I think we're certainly seeing technology developments that sort of work right the way through the supply chain, from the scanning of the rough, sort of right the way through. I think it's interesting if we start thinking about the actual consumer, as well, and the end customer, and the presentation to them. We've been doing some work recently on developing the viewer that goes with these nano IDs, because obviously we've got to be able to reveal them and show them to the consumer. And of course there what you need is, you need something which can sit in a luxury, in a jewellery store, in that sort of setting, and work well with the consumer. And it's been down to sort of simple things. When we reveal this hidden ID, this sort of a serial number and a logo on the screen to the consumer, and then someone rotates the piece of jewellery and they see that move, the reaction is, for any consumer, I get it. That definitely is that stone I'm talking about. So you've established the link and the trust at that point. At that point, then, I think, whatever is in store, whatever's at the point of sale, it's then got to move rapidly on to providing all this great information for the consumer in a way that they're able to engage with, whether it's sustainability is their interest, whether it's the sort of traceability and sort of origin information, and sort of have some fun with the consumer there. It's got to link in with social media, with mobile and everything else at that point. But the key thing is establishing that trust. And I think that's the bit, there's a lot of information here that's been gathered, and we need to think about now making that easily digestible for the consumer.
Thank you. Since one of the main focuses of the topic today is responsibility, I want to turn back over to Francesca and dive a little bit into what is the Kering Group working on to develop even more responsible practices.
Thank you for the question, considering that sustainability is a very common word today, which has many different evaluations that we have to take in consideration. So let's start from the origin. Kering and sustainability share a long history that started more than 15 years ago, as our CEO and chairman, François-Henri Pinault, has the strong conviction that sustainability makes a good business sense. So probably as you have received the news that a few days ago, sorry if I read, but the title is so long, a few days ago in Davos at the World Economic Forum, Corporate Knights published its 2024 100 Most Sustainable Corporations research, and Kering has been ranked first among all the luxury, apparel, and fashion companies for the 7 years in a row. So you can imagine what the efforts have been. My microphone? Okay, yeah. So definitely Kering is a pioneer in the fashion industry, but for Kering, the luxury, so the hard luxury, meaning jewelry and watches, is not less important. And a great demonstration of how Kering is investing in responsible practices is given by a clear demonstration, which is the Watches and Jewelry Initiatives 2030, launched in 2022 by Kering and Cartier, which has the scope of making the jewelry industry fully sustainable. How is it possible? By advancing brands, suppliers, and also professional organizations in a common direction. Because what is important to understand in sustainability is that it is a common trajectory. Alone we cannot do alone we can go so fast, but the investments are so huge and the topic is so complicated that we have to collaborate.
Thank you.
I would like just to add one little point related to our jewelry brands to give concrete examples, because when we talk about initiative, it's always nice, but it's important also to give concreteness. And I would like just to mention two brands which are investing a lot. For example, Boucheron is already working on traceability on all the diamonds from up to 0.20 carats. So all diamonds are traced. Second, Pomellato has been ranked first in the WWF Watches and Jewelry report. And you know that this report is very important because it states the impact the jewelry industry has all along the pipeline in the supply chain, meaning biodiversity, climate change, and also human rights.
Thank you, and congratulations to the Kering Group for being #1 again and continuing on its journey, leading the path. I want to switch over to the mining side of things. Ed, can you talk to me a little bit about what Gemfields is doing to demonstrate from mine to market the colored gemstones?
Yeah, thank you. There's a number of points, if I add on to what I said earlier about Gemfields being established to bring that transparency and that responsible mining practice to the colored stone industry. But firstly, of course, around the traceability, which we've already talked about with the technological solutions. Because we control our mines, and our emerald mine is the largest, or believed to be the largest emerald mine in the world, and our ruby mine in Mozambique, again, I think is clearly the largest ruby mine in the world. We control those mines, and everything that comes from those mines, we only sell rough, is placed on the blockchain for downstream partners to utilize. So I think that's an important consideration, that those options for traceability has been there from the start with Gemfields. Additionally, there's another traceability solution called provenance proof offered by a Swiss gem lab called Gubelin, which is only really applicable on emeralds. So a percentage of our premium emeralds, our premium product, it uses provenance proof technology. So that traceability is there, and I think that's an important first step in terms of the demonstrating responsibility. Also, I talked about the importance of bringing value back to the host nations, and with our system of a closed bid auction with cutters around the world who bid on our gemstones that we offer to them, that means that we can clearly trace through how much of the value of those gemstones come back to those host countries. And something we've been pioneering now for a few years is something we call the G factor. G roughly equates to governance. It also has a nod to gemstones. It also alludes to our name, Gemfields. But the G factor is a simple percentage score. It's a rating scale for miners. And it means basically we take the amount that's paid in revenue, dividends, taxes to the host country, and you use a simple formula with your revenue, and you come out with a percentage score. So we know that 17% of our revenue from Kagem Mine in Emerald is paid to the Zambian government. We also know that in Mozambique, 23% of our revenue is paid to the Mozambique government. Taxes in Mozambique are slightly higher, in case you're wondering. So what we feel is important is miners need to be held to account of how much they're contributing to local economies. So there's no such index around the world that companies adhere to. We're working currently with the Zambian EITI, the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, to embed and bring in that G factor for all companies. I mean, we've looked at annual reports, and we see that the 17 and 23 is outshining many performers, especially those that do not disclose anything about their production and what they pay to government. So I think that's an important part of being responsible, is that transparency and being clear on what benefits in taxes you bring back. Lastly, and I think most importantly, and apologies for the time, I'm reminded of a discussion when I worked for RJC, the Responsible Council, previously, and I was speaking to a French gemstone dealer, and he would say to me, an RJC is a standard that is governed by a third-party audit. So somebody else tells the company that they're operating to best practice. And this gemstone dealer would say, you know, if I were to tell you that I'm handsome, that's less effective than if my wife told you I was handsome. What I mean by that is everybody is saying that they're responsible in this industry. But very few people are actually adhering to a third-party audit of their operations so that somebody else is saying you're conducting best practice. So we adhere to international standards. Our Fabergé is RJC certified and proud of that. We're a member since 2019 and a fully aligned member of the Voluntary Principles for Security and Human Rights. It's not the most well-known standard in the industry, but it's the oldest multi-stakeholder initiative involving government, company, and civil society to drive improvement of observance of the United Nations Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, especially around extractive industries in Africa, where there are human rights challenges. So, and we're in the thick of that. So that standard is very important for us. And the last standard, which I'm really pleased, I've talked internally a little bit about, Gemfields is on a journey this year to seek verification with the IRMA mining standard. If you've not heard about it before, the Initiative for Responsible Mining Assurance is a relatively new standard compared to many of the voluntary sustainability standards out there, but it's clearly the most rigorous and most widely exciting one, shall we say, for the mining business to delineate between mining and responsible mining as we go forward. And we're very excited about that journey. It's quite a process, but we're looking forward to that process hopefully by the end of the year. So in short, responsibility is a journey, as we've always said, but it means adhering to standards and demonstrating clearly what your commitments are to it.
Thank you. Speaking and sticking briefly with the mining side, I have a question for Tai. Why is platinum as a metal looking into responsibility and sustainability?
But before that, I just want to say this is so great. I'm getting all the answers. I'm hoping to learn, maybe as the audience, from people that's like Ed, that has really moved and pioneered in this area. For platinum, we really just started embarking on this journey. I think it was in 2023, end of the year last year, that we started launching more initiatives towards responsible sourcing. So one of those is the responsibleplatinumjewelry.com, where we are compiling and updating all ESG initiatives that's happening on the mining side. Also, end of last year, we also launched the Responsibly Mined Platinum, which is a casting grain. We launched it in the US, and that's now made available for the trade. And that's supplied in compliance with LPPM, Responsible Platinum and Palladium guidelines. So that's really one of the first moves that we've done from a third-party sort of accreditation to go into the market. And we're really hoping to roll that out to the rest of the world this year. And that's what's on the agenda, yeah.
It's exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. Question for Francesca. What is the type of influence a big group like the Kering Group can exercise across the entire supply chain?
Thank you for the question. And I would like to say that this is one of the topics I love to discuss, because I think it is very important to act first and foremost. But what we have to take in consideration is the influence we can have on the others by being an example or by sharing practices in order for the others to follow, or also for the others to join. And I would like to give you a simple example. Maybe you remember that a few years ago, Kering has been the first group to go fur-free. Until that moment, it was pretty normal to wear a fur, right? To wear it or to buy it. Then what happened after is that regulation changed, but also that many other brands decided not to go anymore for fur, and also an international movement of people working hard for animal welfare has been really much considered into companies' decision. So my provocative question today is, let's imagine if today a giant company decided to impose traceability for anything, like diamonds, for coral gemstones. So it's important to understand that we all work in an ecosystem and we all have to be ready to react, but for simple reasons, because whatever we do for us. We don't do for Ed or for Tai. I do it for my children. I do it for my mom, and you do the same. So I kindly invite you to think about every day, to ask yourself, did I do something good for my family? And so my provocative question is to let you think about the impact of your actions. And maybe we have here great experts on technologies that could help us on how to understand how concreteness we can go.
Thank you. Ed, would you be able to touch base briefly on what you feel defines responsibility in the gem and jewelry supply chain?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, isn't it? And we've been grappling with it for some time in this industry. You know, what does responsibly mean? And as I alluded to earlier, in the time that I've been around, I've seen an explosion of the word responsible. I mean, it seems that every gemstone now is responsibly sourced with nothing really behind it. So how do we define it, all right? Yeah, it touches a little bit on what you were talking about there, where we all have to question how we operate on a daily basis. And companies have to do the same now, and they have to be accountable for that. And they have to clearly demonstrate with actions. I believe in standards, and I know others align with that as well. But for me, there's a shift that's been coming for some time in the industry, and those of us who have worked in it have seen it. The jewelry industry went through a very clear period of responsibility being mitigating risk, de-risking. Kimberly Process is a great example of that, okay? It de-risked the issues of human rights abuses in the diamond supply chain, and it was effective. Of course, there's questions about it going forward, but it's been effective. But there's a move now, and you can hear it and you can see it in companies, and Kering as an example, where it's important to talk about the positive impact that jewelry brings. There's a very difference there. Talking about the good, de-risking. And we need rapidly to move into talking about the positive impact that jewelry brings. Jewelry serves no purpose. We've talked about this for decades. It serves no purpose in society except to adorn, which for me as an industry professional is an important purpose. I mean, it's something that's inherent within us, right? It's also the ultimate gift. But unless we demonstrate clearly against all other categories out there that we are responsible and we are making a positive impact in the world through how we source and how we give back to society, the consumer will turn away from this product. So responsibility for me going forward is about demonstrating positive impact.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you. Jason, turning it over to you. Could you share some insights on exactly how Tracr has grown and what industry leaders have joined the Tracr platform to start to build more of a collective effort within the trade?
Yeah, sure. So I think that challenge you've set out, Francesca and Ed, it's a big challenge. So bringing all this information together in one place is the challenge. What we heard very clearly during the first 2 years of Tracr from the industry was they wanted everyone to work together. So there are a lot of technologies in the industry, there are a lot of information providers, there are a lot of different systems. Could we all please integrate? So we've, as we've grown out Tracr, and I think we're now currently 34 participants, 2 million rough diamonds and roughly 200,000 polished registrations on the platform. At the same time as building out that core technology, we've started to build some key integrations. So that started with just people asking us, can you make the diamonds available on the key marketplaces? So we've done RapNet and Uni and IDEX and just made the codes available, which I think all the provenance platforms have done. And then the next bit is more fundamental and key, is kind of connecting with grading labs. So we obviously announced the collaboration with GIA, and that's making sure that you can exchange grading information and record it on Tracr, so that if you've graded your diamond, we can then carry that securely with a story. Similarly, with partners like Sarine, we're looking to ways to bring verification techniques onto the platform, so that the sort of the science of checking the diamond is the same, can then be evidenced on the platform. And all this is about having more and more security and sort of confidence in that story, in that journey, so that if you're talking about positive impact, you can actually say, yeah, I know this is the diamond, and that's actually the impact it had. So this is where we're trying to get to.
Thank you. I think one thing that we've shown here today and bringing together this panel is just how important it is for the trade to start to work together collectively to help this, from metals to gemstones to technology. And I'm going to have kind of a final question for all the panelists here. Where do you see it going, and how do you see either your company or the collective efforts to start to lead the way, so it can trickle down into not just the large companies, but the middle size and the small companies?
I'll start. For me, the collaboration piece is critical here. And, I'm sitting next to a company that ultimately buys and sells our emeralds and rubies, Kering, through Boucheron and Pomellato. And, we have a relationship that's far deeper than just sitting next to each other here. So, Kering has done full audits on our supply chain, and many of the other brands that use our stones have. So I think, that's an important area of collaboration. We have to work together. We're at different ends of the supply chain in different areas. So the dealers have to work with the retailers, and the retailers have to understand the areas where some dealers, for example, the smaller dealers, have challenges in defining and demonstrating traceability. Okay, we're a large-scale mine. We can provide traceability, but not everybody can. 80%, I've even heard 90% of the world's colored stones come from small-scale mines around the world, and they're critical for social development in areas that need the income from those minerals. So understanding those needs and understanding the complexities is critical for the industry to meet the Sustainability Development Goals, the SDGs, which we're all focused, hopefully, on achieving by 2030. So collaboration is absolutely critical going forward, in working with our supply chain and understanding the supply chain wherever you are in it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your point, which
You're welcome.
Which helped me in getting into another topic I think is crucial in order to have collaborative efforts, which is education. And as I was mentioning before, to reduce the impact we have in terms of emissions, in terms of human rights, in terms of biodiversity, we have to collaborate. And why we have to collaborate? Because the knowledge we need is so different. So you cannot imagine that you have in your company one person responsible for all all these topics. So that's why there are in the industry many collaborative actions able to help you evolve. And as this industry is mostly built on medium and small suppliers, I invite all of you to join organizations that are helping companies in developing exactly what Ed was mentioning before, the SDGs goals.
Thank you. And obviously, a big requirement of this is going to come from the technology end. So, Jason first.
Yeah, from a technology perspective, I'd like to see all this seamless integration become easier and easier. And I'd like to see organizations like yours, Andrew, build really cheap, easy identification fingerprinting methods, so you can almost take a ring or a stone and, just put it through like a barcode almost, but with a physical thing. Just making it super, super easy. And then I think the obligation on platforms like Tracr is to make it very, very easy for smaller players to join, sign up, create an account. So that's our challenge going forward.
No, thank you. I think, yes, I would echo those that, the importance is to be able to make it easy for the consumers, understandable, and to provide the element of trust when we're presenting this sort of information. Just one little snapshot, by the way, was interesting out of the De Beers Insight report from last autumn. 58% of respondents wanted origin information, and by the way, that rises to 69% for Generation Z, and then in a separate question, 79% weren't offered the information. So I think that's our challenge, is bringing it together. That's what the consumers, are asking. So we're talking about it from an industry point of view, but that's the end customers, which are now asking for that today. So I think very soon we're going to see two categories of product. We're going to see product where traceability is available and provided to those consumers, and one which it isn't. And our challenge is to bring all the information together and to meet the needs of that growing sector where they want it today.
How do you think that you can convey the right amount of information?
I think you've got to have a good level of information available. Is it going to be the country of origin, the producers, we've heard about that today, the individual mine? So I think you've got to have all of that information and then all of the stories that come behind it. The reality is some consumers will want a lot of that and some may be less interested. That's fine. That's what we'll have.
Definitely. And Tai.
Yeah, I was saying platinum is relatively just starting out in this journey. And I think one of the benefits is hearing all the leaders and all the great work that has been done throughout the supply chain, and we can learn a lot from that and follow in that footsteps. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank SIPJO for the opportunity to host this session. I definitely got a lot of answers, and I learned a lot. So I hope everyone got as much out of it as I did.
Thank you. Thank you. If we have time, I'd like to open it up to see if anyone has any questions for any of the panelists.
Is there a microphone, or should we give it?
Well, first of all, I really enjoyed this panel. I think it was super good content-wise and also a super critical topic. Everyone knows that regulations has gone up 150% the past 10 years. Voluntary initiatives are not enough. And my question is also, when you know now that the Corporate Social Responsibility Directive, the Green Deal, is asking much more information on impact on nature, on biodiversity, on climate, and we have DG Justice, Mr. Reinders from my country, Belgium, who is bringing in strengthening the regulations on operationalization of human rights. Are you thinking wider? How are you going to bring that data in? Because I agree, it's not just the trustability, it's not just about the source, it's about the whole story, because you could be doing, it could actually come from a great country, but then once into manufacturing, it could go very wrong in human rights issues. So, and second component I wanted to ask also is about education and bringing everyone on the journey of technology.
Can I
Yes.
take that? Because
Yep.
I mean, I think the question is really critical here, because we've talked about traceability in the industry for such a long time. It is one piece in responsibility. And I think we need to be really clear on that. And the solutions that these two gentlemen and their companies are bringing is critical, and there are many others. But there's a far bigger piece here. That's why I hark back to the standards, which encompass every aspect about responsible business practices. You know, getting to the education, and Iris, you asked the question, and I need to highlight, you often talk about now is the time to accelerate the progress on this. We've been talking too long. And now we really have to get to some critical points here, especially around climate change, especially around biodiversity. But equally importantly, from our perspective, operating mines in very volatile areas in Africa, increasing the impact that we make on positive steps towards human rights in countries. All right? This was where this whole journey started for the jewelry industry, through the conflict diamond story, which hit late 90s, early 2000s. And that's the journey the industry's been on. And if we're not really careful of taking clear steps, we're going to have another issue there. Mining is seen as evil amongst Gen Z. Am I talking too bluntly? But mining brings everything to our society. By the way, those same people that are criticizing mining are doing so on their mobile phones. I hope you understand the irony of that. So mining has to justify its position in society. It is a critical component. And jewelry equally has to do that, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed. And I think from a Tracer perspective, we're ready and able to include that data once the miners are, and it's a bit of a journey to do that data. One of the things we've noticed early on is like the data, you know, you can create a platform and record the data, but we're only as good as the behavior of all the participants. So one of the things we've done in Tracer is sort of partner with the De Beers pipeline integrity, BPP standards, obviously require RJC membership downstream because, you know, as I say, a pure technology platform isn't enough. When more data is available on the impact, then we can ingest that on the platform.
Hi, I'm Ella Hill. I'm the CEO and founder of Hill & Company. We work with between 20 and 30 companies a year, helping them to expedite growth with good strategy. Many of them come to us and say, where do we start? What's the first thing? And thank you very much, everybody, for the fine information we got already today. But if you had to say, especially for Opsydia and Tracer, the biggest hurdle that we need to knock down, and I know there's so many that we have to, but if we want to focus our energy on an action that's top priority, what is that biggest hurdle right now?
Can I reply here, please?
Yes, you can.
So it's important to say that there are different challenges. So we cannot say you have to prioritize just here. Because as I was saying, it's a journey. It takes time. What we have all to concentrate on is emission reductions. It's important. It is all of us because emission reduction affects all the other aspects related to human rights, linked to where people live, linked to how we live, linking where we have to go, linking how our supply chain will be impacted. Because emission reduction has a direct impact on how the weather will be in the future. So if we are out of water, what can we do? What can Head could do with his mine? So there are many topics we have to concentrate on. Emission reduction and, as we mentioned many times, human rights.
Thank you very much. I'm more looking for the questions that get asked of us by our clients. Where do I start? We know emission reductions is the goal, but what is the first thing that they must do to be contributing towards that goal? And for some reason, I aimed it at you guys because I know that if you can supply, many of our clients are diamond businesses, 40%. So if you guys can respond to how do you become more effective at connecting the dots that you guys can so readily do if you have the right partners? Is it getting the right partners? Is it getting the diamond companies to agree? Is it getting retailers to understand the demand? What's the hurdle there? But thank you very, very much. The goal is clear.
Well, I mean, I think from our sort of point of view, then really what we're providing is that sort of glue, if you like, to the identity of the stones. So, hopefully those sort of partners have established their traceability credentials and everything else for their stones. And so what this is doing is really enabling them now to introduce this technology so that they can sort of lock in that story with the stones that they're then selling. And of course, then it carries on through, so that when it ends up, in the jewellery brands, then of course they've made that connection right the way through. So really the starting point is they've got to have the information, they've got to have the traceability already of their supply, but then to be able to lock in that and demonstrate it and provide it to the rest of their sort of chain. So that can be started today.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to go ahead and get this wrapped up so the next panel can get going up here. I would say if any of you have any further questions, I'm sure you can seek out anybody up here after. And I want to again thank the audience, thank Sibjo, and thank all the panelists.